All right. I think Rana is hosting this, so I'll wait for her. Shripad, who's going to be speaking today?
Yeah, Anka and Lou, I think they are joining shortly. I'll
Okay.
just ping them.
All right, let's get this started.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, you all, depending on where you are.
Hello, here, Rana. My meeting got cancelled, so I can
Okay,
make
very
it
good.
here to see the presentation. Okay.
Thank you. I don't think we have any newbies today. Do we have any other updates before we get into the presentation? Any working groups have any updates that they want to share? If not, we can jump into the presentation. Brandon, who's presenting?
I think Anka and Luke, Ashripa just mentioned. Lou is
Yeah, I think
just joined. Yeah, I think let's give a couple of minutes. Let me copy in the description. While we're waiting, anything exciting happening recently?
Not really. The same old stuff.
There was a fun cryo CVE today. First one I've seen of those.
Oh, what happened there?
So if you can create a pod in a cluster running cryo, you can essentially break out the underlying node. There was a input validation issue when you're setting syscuttles that basically let you concatenate an unsafe syscuttle. So you could do like things like set the crash dump binary, and it would let you set any program. Kind of nice.
Oh boy, yeah.
Kind
of nice with some people.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
I reckon you can stop it with admission control though. If you don't need people to set syscuttles, you can just tell the admission to like Gatekeeper or Kyverno not to let people change it. That would block it as an easy way. Yeah. It's a good write-up. Everyone likes write-ups of these things.
This is cool. Thanks for sharing.
There was another neat one as well, but if you have cap netadmin and you can set an IP table based rule, then there was a buffer overflow that allowed the system to execute arbitrary code in kernel space. And that one came out a couple of days ago. And when you pair that with rootless containers, you can run unshare and gain access to capNetAdmin even if you didn't have it before, giving you access to the exploit.
yeah, Anka, she seems to be having some problem with the Zoom. Lou, do you know, are you going to start or Anka is going to start the presentation? Lou? think you're on mute if you're talking.
Yeah, I think Lou is on mute.
Sorry about that. So hopefully Anka will join because this is mostly her presentation and I was just going to give a small demo.
You're really soft, by the way.
Yeah, I have this problem with Zoom before. Is it still soft? Because it seems to automatically adjust itself.
Can't hear at all. Sorry.
Yeah.
Still soft?
Yes.
Because when I try to adjust my microphone, it
Puts it back down for me, whether I like it or not.
Oh, now it's good. Now it's good. Something
Okay,
happened when you were speaking.
I do the same thing with my son who's away at school, and I adjust my microphone, and somebody, I thought Zoom, puts it back down low. Very strange.
Yeah, it's all good now.
Okay, good. So what I was trying to say was that the bulk of this presentation is Anka, so hopefully she can join.
Yeah, she's pinging me. I was like, she's still having problem with the login. We'll give one more
Okay.
minute. We'll see.
Yeah. We don't have any other agenda items, so I think we should be, we have time.
Hey guys, Underwood here. Long as we're on pause here. I'm just mentioning something from the NIST that was of interest to us. It's not specifically cloud native, but there's an update to, I think it's 800-172, which is enhanced security for controlled unclassified information. It's part of the general data protection initiative, which is something we're dealing with in my day job stuff in finance. So might be of interest to some people on this call. There's a link in the log.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing that.
But
There's
I
another.
think-
Sorry.
So- No, I just think Lou, you can start while Anka can join.
Okay, sounds good.
So let me see if I can find the presentation. Okay. So another wrinkle is that I use Linux, and so I have LibreOffice, and it's not usually wonderful for displaying these things. See how it goes. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. So is that working?
It is.
Oh, cool. Okay. So, okay. So this is about OSCAL and the exchange protocol and transformer construction that we've been working on here at IBM and with the NIST team. And so this is briefly Anka's background. She's an STSM in IBM research, has a lot of experience in this area. I'm less of a compliance person. It's kind of new to me. I'm more of a Python programmer who's kind of fitted into this arena. And so the idea, the big picture is to automate security and compliance. And so I really don't know the audience that I'm talking to. So if I'm talking about stuff you already know about, I'm sorry. But so this is about security, automation of security, and this is using OSCAL, which is an attempt to have a standard for security and compliance. It's a standard language that instead of each having his own, just like other standards, it's a way that people will be able to interchange information relative to security and compliance.
I have a tiny request. Can you full screen the window?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh. So please stop me if I'm not making sense or if if you have any questions at all. So these are some of the challenges. You know, information technology is complex. There's security vulnerabilities everywhere. Regulatory frameworks are burdensome. Risk management is hard. Documentation becomes outdated fast. And you know, when you're doing compliance checking, your actual implementation may not match, you know, what you've written down on a piece of paper.
We lost the voice again. We can't hear you.
I don't know why it does that. I didn't do it on purpose. It just
Okay, no worries. It just
No.
went back right into very low volume, and then suddenly you came back.
Yeah, I changed my microphone. It adjusted down automatically. I have this same problem with my son. I don't know who's doing it, if it's Zoom or who's doing it, but
Zoom. If you're running Linux and you go in the Zoom settings internally, Zoom has an option that's like adjust my volume or something like that. If you turn that off, this stops happening. I run Linux too, so I'm very familiar with it.
Okay, I won't try and do that now because it'll take me forever to figure that out. But I'll just try and watch the microphone and put it back up if it goes down.
Good luck.
Okay, so I don't know how much you heard of this screen, me describing it, but these are some of the challenges, and I'll, you know, again, to try and automate and is better than just relying on a piece of paper that might be outdated, essentially, is the message here. So I'll try and go forward. And so what we're calling NIST OSCAL is kind of like the Rosetta Stone, where there's all kinds of different things that may be suppliers of information or may rely on rules that need to be implemented or tested. And what NIST OSCAL tries to do is to have a common standard that everybody can agree upon, and makes it simpler to interact with all different pieces parts that want to you do security and compliance. Is Anka here?
Yeah, I think she joined.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
I just got to this slide, and I've tried to give my best interpretation of these, but please feel free to take over.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lou. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Sorry about the technicalities here. I don't know what happened. I had to recreate another account. I don't know what happened with the other one. Anyway, so here I am. Lou, Shripa, did you do the introductions, or should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, I've kind of made it up to the screen, but if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, please feel free to, and then you can.
No, that's fine. So we are working with Shripad in the hybrid cloud research center in IBM. I'm a research scientist, worked for 5 years in Watson Health, trying to align IBM Cloud and HIPAA. And currently I'm working on driving the compliance digitization in IBM and Red Hat. So as part of this work on compliance, right, the problem compliance these days is a business liability. Everybody is looking for continuous compliance, and this can be done only through automation. And one of the key points for automation, especially when we are talking cross products, is of course standardization. And NIST provided OSCAL to help the various tools and personas involved to be able to talk to each other, and especially communicate also in via machine readable standards, right? So we are talking about the catalog authors, the baseline or profile authors, security professionals, assessor auditors, and there are artifacts that are associated with those that OSCAL is supporting. And if you can go to the next page. Okay, thank you. Right, so OSCAL is not just a standard, right? It is also, can you go a bit more up? I think it's cut, or it's just the way that, okay, perfect.
Do you want to share a screen, Anka? Or you can share your screen if you have it handy.
You know what? I will not touch anything for now. I'll have to understand what's going on. So let's do this for now in the interest of time. So it is also a framework. So OSCAL allows provide machine readable formats for in XML, JSON, and YAML, and allows multiple, declaration of multiple any compliance and regulation framework. It allows, sorry, the software, hardware, service, process providers to express how their products, tools, services implement those security controls. The artifact in OSCAL that provides schema for that is called the component definition, and is basically a list of all the controls with all the tools, products with the mappings to the controls and to the statements, right, that they are implementing. It allows sharing how the controls are implemented by a particular environment. So now that the vendors described how they implement the controls, system owners are able to describe how parts of those tools and the relationships between them are implementing controls. And the artifact in OSCAL that supports that is the system security plan. And then it allows OSCAL allows to define assessment plans, that provide support through the assessment plan artifact on how to decentralize the inventory and controls, and so that we can have targeted results. And also it allows to provide the results themselves as, you know, basics observations, right, on the technical rules tests in the system, or the more complex mapped to actual controls, and also for mature systems, assessment systems, to provide results in terms of risks that are associated with that. And you can see that OSCAL allows for this traceability. It is built with compliance as code in mind. So by the time we reach the assessment results, and of course I did not mention, it also supports OSCAL plan of actions and milestones. And this is about, if we are in an operational environment, it's about remediation, or if we are talking about a plan of action against baseline, right, removing the failing control, or, you know, creating mitigation for resolving it. So it allows support both the more of the compliance resolution aspect and the operational resolution aspect. And as we go by those artifacts, of course, they contain references to all the others, right? To the catalogs that is used, to the profile, to the system security with the plan, with the parameters of the environment set to the values that are recommended, and so on. So they all link to each other. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So as I mentioned, besides the language, right, and the schemas that we have in the three languages, OSCAL is a framework as well, and these are the layers, right, allowing to build on each other the various security actions, right. So once I have a catalog, I'm able to modify that catalog in order to create a profile, and once I have a profile, I'm able to declare, right, for a component what are the vendors' recommended implementations, recommended parameter values for that particular profile. Once I have a system security plan, I can, of course, have an assessment plan for it, and that will lead to results. And, you know, the failures, right, will allow for a system owner to define a plan of action and milestones. It can be, you know, pure text, just, you know, what can be done, or it can be can include references to scripts that can lead to automatic actions. And let's keep the next and move to the slide number 10, please. Thank you. And so here is where Trestle comes into the picture. It is an opinionated Python implementation as a toolchain, and it not only implements for each of the OSCAL artifacts, right, the corresponding templates, right, in order to allow the for an easy user experience in working with those artifacts. It has it allows to interlock with operational platforms in order to be able to you know, consume inventory collection, or to consume reports from various systems. One example is Arbitrary, which is another open source from IBM that provides, again, a tool chain that allows to orchestrate evidence collection and checks on top of that, so that against the profile that Trestle will provide is able to generate the results for the system. Besides we can go please to the next slide. Besides the implementation of the artifacts, there are a set of utilities that Trestle implements, again, for a streamlined user experience. And one of the most used ones are, split and merge. As you can imagine, these documents, right? Think of NIST 853 that has 800 controls. It's very difficult to work with such large artifacts. So Trestle supports splitting that at different levels of granularities that the user can select. So we can work with a family of controls, or we can work with control, or we can work just with a statement. And as we work with those various elements of the artifact, we can afterwards do a Trestle merge, and the full artifact is generated for whatever procedure, right? It is needed. We have the possibility to create templates for all of the OSCAL artifacts. This is very helpful, to help understanding and taking care of some of the items that, as you work with OSCAL, compliance is very complex, and automating it is even more complex. So starting with OSCAL, with this framework at once is a very difficult endeavor. So what typically we do, even if you have multiple people in the team, we started actually with the results. We just focused on the results. Let's streamline the generation of the results aligned with the standard, and gradually we open that towards having component definition from which we can structure the components in the results. And then we added a profile in order to help customize through parameterization the components in the profile, or in the policy that is required to validate the system against. So it is useful, right, to be able to generate those independently and be able to work with them to understand. And even within that's what I wanted to actually get to. Even within an artifact, the coverage is so rich in terms of the elements needed for compliance that we started really just with a few aspects. So for instance, in the OSCAL result, we are mainly looking at observations, right? So we delayed the mapping to the controls and risks, right? And we just focused. And what Trestle helps you is to have this template that contains all the required elements, even if you don't use them. So, okay, so besides Trestle as a framework for OSCAL, if we go, please go to the next slide, we can use also Trestle as an SDK. And this came very handy for us in the IBM Cloud Security and Compliance Center, right? Where for scalability purposes and agility of providing as many results as possible, we had to integrate that center with multiple validation tools. Of course, each tool comes with their own format, and we cannot ask the tool to change. What we can offer, we offer an SDK on top of which the customers or the IVPs we are working with can implement their transformer to and from OSCAL, right? So, and if we go to the next slide, right, it's an example of what a transformer can cover. And as I mentioned, we started with the assessment results, getting results from various tools like, Tenium and, OpenShift Compliance Operator and, pipelines for the supply chain results. And that's the work that we drove together with Shripad in this context. So when we are looking at the results, as I mentioned, there are multiple aspects in the results. There are description, of course, start, end of the period when the assessment is done, but then we have observations, we have risks, we have findings. So the SDK allows our assessment tool, partner to provide a complete assessment result or a partial assessment result, and will help guiding where we need to have the a schema now filled up just in order to have a valid result. So I think in the next slide we have an example for Tanium, right? So in the case of Tanium, we have 3 types of profiles. We have the CIS profile for Red Hat, RHEL for Windows 10 and for Windows Server, and we just show in the native format how they look like. And of course, I'm not sure if we have it here, but Lou mapped those to the actual path in. Yeah, I bet I knew that. And right, I think it's pretty straightforward. We took what the path was in the file that we received from Tanium. I think it was XML, and we mapped it to the path in the OSCAL main, and the translator on top of the SDK, the transformer, sorry, actually implements that mapping that Lou has here. How much time do we still have, Shripad?
We have we have until the end of the hour, but I'd say leave about at least 15 minutes for questions.
Okay, so I'll wrap it up in 10-15 minutes. Okay, so so I think Lou, do you want to do the demo now for this transformer?
Sure, I could talk about this really quickly. And so what Anka is referring to, the previous screen showed again this native format for Tanium. We also did for compliance operator as well, a native format. And this is a spreadsheet again that we just put together to help us think about how we're going to actually write a transformer that's going to take the native form and put it into OSCAL format. And then this last slide here shows what the transformer produced in OSCAL. So it's just a snippet of what the result is. It's much larger than this. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take you to the Trestle demo site. Trestle has a core site where the Trestle SDK and other utilities live. And then there's on the side is a bunch of demos, and you can go and visit this yourself. And the first one I'm going to show is this one we did for Kubernetes. And so this is a demo where Trestle is this bottom layer here. And what I wrote was I wrote a transformer that sits on top of Trestle. So we go and use Trestle just as a base SDK. And I wrote a little bit of Python code. And the challenge here is that in Kubernetes, they have these, in the working group, they have these sample YAML files that are essentially their results. And what we want to do is to standardize, to put that in OSCAL format. And so that's what this little piece of code does. It reads these 4 YAML files, does the translation, and produces some JSON. And these are the steps that again, you can do this yourself. Just a few simple steps to download this demo, create the Python environment, and then go ahead and run it. And so it's not too exciting to watch, but I can just issue this command and you can see it happen. So I can go ahead and do that. Oh, wrong one. Sorry.
So you basically showed that the one that we have for the OpenShift works as well. So.
So I went ahead and created those, and then And here's some OSCAL that was produced by the transformer. So it's not real exciting, but it's real useful because now it's in OSCAL format and it's a standard form. And we do the same for Tanium, for compliance operator, for Kubernetes. It's in a standard form, and now everybody can think about this data in the same kind of a way. I don't know how interesting it would be to see the other demo. Again, as Anka said, it's the same thing. We take this native format, which is what the compliance operator supplies, and again we change it into OSCAL. So I'll see if I can get back to this. So many windows. Oops. So I'll let Anka take over.
Yeah, I would like to go 1 second back to the table.
Oh, sure.
Of course, this is too much information to really digest all, but I want to point here one detail where I think that's essential and shows the richness and one of the reasons why this works. In the middle, you see this NS for namespace. Again, this is not a container namespace. This is an ontology, support for an ontology namespace where we are able to declare for each element, for each property for a given assessment tool, right, validation tool, the name value pair that we declare. And why is this relevant? This is relevant, first of all, right, that we are able also to associate this, as you see in the last column, with the ontology class of our SCC, Security and Compliance Center. So it allows us to align to a common denominator all the results and their properties, where possible, of course, there is commonality, on the same data model. And this allows us to do meaningful aggregations of those observations to, controls and, across regulations, right, by being able to aggregate apples with apples. Second, this is essential for the step that I mentioned, plan of action and not remediations, milestones. Of course, type of milestones is remediation. As I mentioned, the other one is mitigation. If we are to provide information back to the assessment tool to provide remediations, right? For instance, in the case of the work that we've done with Shripad for the supply chain, and we understand, issues, and we send a result back to rerun the pipeline or to fix a parameter in the pipeline and rerun the pipeline. We need to be able to think back, right, in the terminology of that particular assessment tool. So the namespace is helping us to differentiate the different terminologies and being able to speak back to those tools in their terms. Okay, so with that, let me go into the other example for the OpenShift for the compliance operator. Right, we know that the administrators need to validate the hardening, and the OpenShift controls the systems, right, through their machine config operator. In the next slide, I think we have a visual of the compliance operator, internal. No, it's about the process, right? So behind the compliance operator is OpenSCAP, right? So compliance operator, if you are familiar with OpenSCAP, right, it automates all the CIS benchmarks, checks, right, for various systems, right? So when I run OpenSCAP for OpenShift, right? It basically runs all the check against the configuration of the OpenShift. If I run it against Kubebench, right, it will be everything on the CIS benchmark for Kubernetes. When I run it for RHEL, right, it will be the checks for RHEL. So what compliance operator is provides a CRD on top of that, and it will take, as I mentioned, a profile, and it has a bunch of objects, as you can see on the bottom, the type of compliance, the results, the setup of the check, the scan, right, the results, and then compliance remediation. So these are handled by the compliance operator. So it will allow to observe the environment, right, the configuration and so on, and will provide a summary, different level of details for the user. And what was our goal was to interface with the compliance operator and fetch the results, which are in a very old format, XCCDF, and translate it into OSCAL, and are able now to integrate this with the rest of the results. I think we can show slide 21, which is the complete flow of what we are doing. It's a bit busy. So there are two parts, right? The big right part and the small left, bottom part. So what we show on the right side are the two legs of the exchange that takes place between the center and the PVP, the policy validation points, the assessment tool. So at the bottom, you can see it's a profile in SEC, which is normalized into the profile format of the tool, right? In this case, we translate the profile that we have for OpenShift managed service, which is ROCs, right, in IBM. We translate it in the format, in the YAML format, from OSCAL to the YAML format that compliance operator understands. And then the top part is the journey back from the policy validation to the security center, going through the reverse translation. We have the results in the format of the XCCDF. We normalize the result. Is there the third box in the top layer, and we push it into the SCC. And the reason, right, for all those alignments, as I mentioned, is to feed into the audit management to be able to have meaningful aggregation and reporting. It's a busy chart. If we need Shripad to share it, we can share it with the team so that they can, the team can do the details. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what we wanted to share. I hope we covered, Shripad, what the audience was expecting. If not, please, shoot your questions.
No, I think thanks, Anka and Lou. I think this one was really helpful.
So I guess we open up.
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. I guess we'll open up questions now. I know we have a lot of discussion around this, around supply the supply security controls, cataloging group. But before we get that, kind of maybe let's go around, see whether anyone else has anything else to add.
Too many meetings. Hey, thanks for the presentation. I missed the round 2 from NIST about their OSCAL updates. That was last month. From your point of view, what got changed and what do we need to keep up with from your point of view? And then also at the outset, you said OSCAL is difficult to work with. And so I'm inferring a lot here about what parts of this you're referring to. I'm guessing it's the formatting standardization and arriving at canonical names, but I'm interested in what that journey was for you guys, and what kind of APIs are needed, if any, from Tanium and these other products that you're ingesting?
Yes, so three questions, right? Let's start with the first one. So what we had in OSCAL was a workshop at the beginning of this month. I think this was the announcement about, and it was more about the usage of OSCAL in the industry. The changes to the release, I think, will come shortly after. I'm not aware if they had a few of them at the end of last year, and they mainly address enhancements to support, right, the current assets. I expect we are working with them on additional capability. So right now, OSCAL is very good for compliance as code. For us, in order to really provide automation and leverage OSCAL for continuous compliance, the key aspect was the bridging of the compliance artifacts to the policy as code artifacts, right? So the linkage between the English and the interpretation to the references of the policy code, right, that actually runs the checks and so on. So OSCAL is very flexible, and it's easy to work with from a technology point of view or from a engineering point of view. What is difficult, it's not the form, it's the content is very rich. Compliance automation implies many aspects in order to really reach end to end and the full stack. So that was the complex side, right? Where to start? And this brings me to the second question. Our journey, we started with, to your second question, we started with results, right? We said, okay, let's see what happens if we align the results and how this works. One of the changes that OSCAL had, in the prior release, the results used to be nested because an observation is contributing to a finding, and a finding contributing to a risk, and that nesting made it very difficult to use OSCAL and to use the assessment results in a phased way. So they removed the nesting, and now they are related by reference. So observations are separate from findings for risk, and made it much easier for us to just focus on observations. And when we move to findings, we'll just add the references to the observations. So these are the type of, they are very open, very good team, very good channel through the, Gov Git issues and bi-weekly calls to listen to what the, people from the industry, struggled with. So the changes are typically related to that. And the last question you had on the APIs for Tanium and the tools that we interlocked with, no, we did not have to change anything. We provided the SDK because we cannot expect our customers or the tools the customers bring or our ISVs to do changes just because we align to OSCAL. So the SDK provides them easy way to provide the translations, right? So they will send the results or fetch the profile in one format, and that would run then through the Trestle translator to provide it. So if it's a profile, they will ask for a profile. The profile will be generated in OSCAL format, goes to the translator and provide them for the compliance operator. It will translate it in the YAML that they expect. In the case of Tanium, Tanium doesn't take parameterization of their policy. They just push results. They only work with the standard CIS benchmarks. So they just push results. So they push Tanium in their native format, and then we run the results through the Trestle and get the OSCAL format. So then we are talking, apples to apples. We know how to aggregate. For instance, if we are looking for the control SC28 from NIST in my environment, I'm able to take all the results, whether it's Tanium or OpenShift, and I know where I am with that control.
Great, and thanks for keeping all three of those questions in your mind while answering.
You're welcome.
So I have a question about OSCAL itself. One of the problems that I ran into when I was, I actually tried Trestle a couple of months ago, and one of the problems that I ran into was if I have a single catalog, then I'm in good shape. Like I can get it to go from one site all the way to the other. But if I have two catalogs and there happens to be a control that has the same ID within both of the catalogs, even though they may be completely different in what they're doing, there becomes a conflict, and whichever one, I forget if it's the one that runs first or second. I think it's the one that runs first ends up winning. So I was wondering if you knew if there was any work being done in OSCAL spec itself in order to provide some form of namespacing capability, or if not, if you could possibly provide a path there so we could force a namespace to exist, even though it may not be in OSCAL itself. So that way we can represent multiple controls where those conflicts end up existing at the ID level.
Right. So I'm looking right now at the reference of a control. Right. I'm looking at the reference in the component definition, but it's the same for anywhere else, like profile or. And yes, I have a control ID, which is a token and can be the same. But what makes that control unique is its UUID, and the UUID will be generated by your system or tracer in our case, and cannot be duplicated. So. Yes, they will have the same ID, token, and description, but the UUID will show it's a different item and retrieve it in a different catalog.
So perhaps what the problem is then is when I converted it to Markdown, then that information may have been lost. So there was no way to deconflict them at that point. So maybe that was the issue.
In which, so you are working with which artifact, with the catalog itself or with some profile or component definition, and this get, which artifact of OSCAL did you get the problem with?
So I'm trying to remember because it's been a little bit of time since I ran into it, but I think the problem existed in both environments. Like if I had two catalogs and I wanted to modify them, catalog, it was pretty simple because I can just open up that one catalog, do what I need to do, close it up again. So just like work on one at a time. But if I create a profile that combines the two catalogs together, then then I run into that particular problem where I'm not able to differentiate. So I think primarily it may have been an issue at the Markdown level instead.
Yes. So.
Yeah, and I can put something together to reproduce it. That way it's easy later on. So we can take it asynchronously, and maybe it's not an issue. Like the tool itself is fantastic. It's just a little thing here that if I can work out the right way to work with it, then that solves my biggest problem with working with OSCAL in general.
Yeah. So I can see that as part of the catalog, the ID is the token itself. So if you use that, and it's not a UUID. So if you use for that token, some, control 1, control 2, I can see very well where the problem comes from. And then when you merge two catalogs to have a combined profile, right, they'll be, you will have that problem. I don't know how to, I can see how I would do it if I were to combine the catalogs. I will profile, because what you get here unique, the catalog has a new UUID. So I would prefix every token, every ID of a control with that UUID so that you get the unique reference in the combined catalog. Yeah, I will ask in the next group, how they manage. But if I were to solve it right now with even, yeah, I will use the catalog UUID as a prefix for the for the control ID.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking in the short term. But to me, it looked like it was an oversight on the spec, which is fine. I mean, specs they evolve over time too. And if it would be nice to have something where if they were to define something of that, and then that would get parity across all of the implementations, which would then allow the tools to migrate nicely with each other.
Yeah, you're right. I will ask what why we don't have a UID there. It's strange. Yeah, I think it's the only artifact that I see without UID actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just when I was running through my sample use case, I just happened to run into it. I was like, well, the rest of it's really well defined. It's just this one area, and it could have been an issue where, you know, maybe it was made a long time ago, and then newer things all ended up with the UUID, and just this one hasn't been modified to have one just yet. So
yeah, I'll yeah, because actually the only way to work downstream is with profiles. And if you want to have and the profile is always associated only with one catalog. So in order to combine, if you want to combine 3 regulations in one profile, I'm not sure if the intention here was to really stop people for doing that. Because if you downstream, you only use one profile. If you look at the structure of the profile references the hash ref of the catalog. So there is no way that you can miss the controls as being into a different catalog. But I can see very well the use case where someone wants to, you know, put 3 regulations in one profile and do all 3 at once. Yeah, I'll ask. Yeah, and you know, Shripad, I can, you know, check with you to get the answer back to the gentleman, Frederick, or I don't know who was talking.
yeah, that's correct, Frederick Kautz. And
by the way, where is this pig?
Oh, this was this was taken in I'm trying to remember the name of the city. It was in Antwerp, although it moves around, so I don't know where it is right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Very much.
Well, we have only 2 minutes left. Anyone has any other questions or comments for Anka?
Yeah, I think just a quick comment. I think Aradhana, you and I discussed this a little bit. I think the security controls, we may want to kind of explore what it would look like for us to start working towards OSCO in terms of maybe we can define something for the industry to say, you know, here are some generic mappings and here are the evidence or the elements that you have to provide, and hopefully try and get tooling to work towards that.
Yeah, definitely. First, we need to do the mapping, and then I mean, in order to do compliance, you have to first implement the controls, and then you can validate the compliance, right? But both are part of the same effort of automated compliance model that we want in cloud native platforms. So thank you very much, Brandon, for that. And thank you, Anka and Lou, for coming to this meeting and presenting. Will you be able to share the slides with us?
Yeah, I'll give them to Shripad, and we will share. And again, my apologies for the technical hiccup at the beginning of the call.
No worries at all.
You're good. Thanks so much.
Great presentation. So we have 1 more minute left. Any other questions, comments, or feedback that you want to provide? If not, we are at time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anka and Lou, and thank you everyone for attending today. Have a wonderful day.
Well,
thank you for inviting us.